I was reading that Elon Musk has identified 6 engineers and he's brought them into Doge. And right now they're taking the axe to USAID, a U.S. organization that takes $50 billion a year and gives it out globally. They put the names of these 6 kids out and they named them as government employees being brought in for this task by Elon, and they were all between the ages of 19 and 24. And Wired magazine was intensely critical. What can these young kids teach us about government efficiency? Why do they have such a huge role in Treasury and USAID? What can they do? And I saw online people were intensely critical of these boys, young men. I had a chance to read about a couple of them, and here's what I learned. 1, they say this kid is the savant in computer science. He went to UC Berkeley. His colleague says the night before the examination was due, he accidentally deleted pages and pages of code. And this guy just calmly sat there and said, well, I'll rewrite the whole thing from memory tonight. And he actually wrote it better than it was originally written. He's supposed to be a savant. There's another kid who apparently there's some competition and they find some ancient scroll, I think some Phoenician scroll, some old ass scroll, and nobody knows what the writing on this scroll means. And there's a competition using this publicly available scroll data to see who can solve it using artificial intelligence and machine learning to try to figure out what the scroll means. And this kid is number 1 at figuring out what the scroll means using some very complicated computer algorithm. So these aren't just 6 ordinary kids, okay? These aren't 6 ordinary young men. These are 6 extraordinary young men who are Elon's go-to engineers, who probably are the most capable computer science engineers. And I see the media likes to criticize, what can they possibly tell us about government efficiency? Well, here's the answer. Probably a lot, actually. You probably can learn a lot from these extremely smart 6 kids. They probably can find inefficiencies that your bloated bureaucracy full of old people and old brains, including my old brain, can't figure out. You see, I've learned more in my career from a smart young person than I've ever earned from somebody who's been doing the same job for too long without thinking creatively about it. It's often the youngest minds who are the freshest to the topic who have the most insights they can offer. And of course, what do computer scientists know about waste? I don't know. They can do things that you can't think about doing. For instance, they could take every single document that's being processed in the federal government, and they could ask how many eyeballs look at this document using computer logs of how often the documents are accessed and looked at. And they can find which form numbers are the least looked at documents. Perhaps there are even some forms that are literally not looked at by anyone ever. If you find forms that are not looked at by anyone ever, that might be a great place to identify waste. Maybe we shouldn't make people produce those forms, and maybe we shouldn't collect those forms because ain't nobody looking at those forms. I don't know. These young people probably can do that shit. You know what else they can do? They can probably look at complex processes where something is being permitted or granted or approved, and they can see which of the steps in this process is the slowest step, which is the rate limiting step for allowing this process. And they can identify that on a large scale, and we can say, hey, if we invest money in these bottleneck processes, we can actually improve efficiency, I don't know, 10-fold, 100-fold. In short, I don't know all the things they can do because they're smarter than me. Okay, these are these young, smart computer scientist kids. And to me, it's baffling to see so many people in the media say that somehow Elon is doing the wrong thing by picking the brightest 6 young minds. In fact, I would encourage government to more often pick young people and elevate them. In fact, I saw someone nicely point out that in the past, in the generation of Einstein and Feynman, that often young people were the ones given a lot of autonomy early, and their most seminal and important scientific discoveries were often made in their mid-20s. See, I'm an older person. My brain has stopped working. I ran out of good ideas a long time ago. I don't begrudge the young people for continuing to have good ideas. I encourage it. And when possible, I like to learn from young people. You see, recently I wrote an essay on sensible medicine about eulogy versus resume values, and I credit that essay to a student who works with me who is about to go to medical school next year, and he's a smart student. He often says things I haven't thought about. And instead of being angry with him, I say, hey, keep talking, kid. I'm learning something from you, and I try to learn from him. Because that is a good attitude, I think. If you want to run any organization or any team, you can actually gain a lot. So by picking 6 kids, is Elon somehow made, I keep calling them kids, but they're young men. They're grown young men. And they are perfectly capable of handling this task. And probably they're the 6 best people to do it, to look at government efficiency, who are not indebted to government. And somebody said, oh, well, they're not lawyers and they're not public health experts. Good. Probably these people will look at it in a very different way and identify waste in a way you wouldn't even think to look. So, good.